Hello again. Um, this is the this is not my weekly checkup, although the videos are probably gonna go out on the same day. Although I might pace them out so that they don't come out on the same day. Um, I am recording this on the 31st of January, so although admittedly this is more technically the 31st because it is 1 a.m. This right here is going to be my confronting my fears little series that I want to do, that I said that I'd do this year, the whole New Year's resolution thing. I succeeded last year, decided to make a New Year's resolution connected to this, see if it, well, maybe not see if it, try to replicate what I had last year, and also maybe get something out of it. Particularly, um, for this whole series as a ground base, I want this to be less rambly, more to the point, not like my other videos. So, who knows? Maybe there will be editing. I know I don't plan on editing this first one. There might be something, but probably not. Unless, like, there's an interruption and I have to stop the video immediately because while just spewing my thoughts and sort of progress to a camera is still a little not great for me. This specifically would be way worse. I would prefer not to be caught at all. As a matter of fact, I tried recording it earlier today, and then, well, there's a reason you're not watching that now. As a couple of ground rules, or maybe not ground rules, but how I'm approaching it so far, I have five questions, specifically about specific fears. The first question addresses what exactly I'm going to be talking about. The second one is, I believe, I have it right here, how it affects me whenever, I'm experiencing it. Um, Third is how I handle these fears. The fourth is where those fears stem from. And the fifth is how can I confront these fears? And there might not be too big of a distinction between handling and confronting, but I see them as two entirely different things. I don't know about anyone else, but that's my opinion and the way I'm going to be approaching it too. Um, so, now that we have all of that done, the one I'm going to be addressing most today, and as a sort of baseline, as a sort of requirement, especially for the rest of the series, would be a fear of vulnerability. I don't, to be more specific about it, I don't really like exposing myself, I guess. Not in that way, but rather in a more, I guess, emotional way. I don't like being vulnerable with my emotions, and whenever I do, it's more as like a defense or a coping mechanism. It's never earnestly, or for the most part, it's not earnestly. There are some times where I have earnestly been vulnerable with people, but it's not a consistent thing. So, um, I guess this is a start. More being vulnerable with myself. Um, so, in terms of actually effects it has on me, it makes me feel sick. Very often, it makes me feel sick. Um, Knots in the stomach, like honestly, mostly stomach issues, but it also it also kind of inhibits movement because, well, I don't want to be vulnerable, so I just my body stops responding to me, or more specifically, my brain stops listening to a certain part of it. So I'm inhibiting myself from actually being vulnerable. It's a little debilitating, and it's really, really not fun. Um, Especially when you're actually trying to, well, especially when I'm actually trying to just do something, or trying to essentially call for help in a major issue that even if I don't necessarily need someone's help on, I do need it to be, at the very least, known by someone else instead of just trapped in the confines of my mind where nobody else will figure it out. That's particularly when that's particularly the symptoms. I don't think I've noticed any others, but this is also mostly coming from more recent memory, from at least up to 1 to 3 years ago. So maybe there were other things that I just haven't experienced for a while, but this is most recent experiences I'm going off of. Particularly with handling it, since we're on to the third question already. Ah, as I put right here, I don't. It kind of just happens to me. I don't handle it. The only times I ever actually end up being vulnerable in those very rare circumstances, maybe 3 times as far as I can remember, I just power through it. My will overpowers the fear, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I can't expect my will to be just that strong all the time. I wish it was, but, you know, humans are creatures that that change in mental state an awful lot, and so our will also changes with that. It's not something that easy to handle, I don't think. I'm partially, oh, I guess I should have added this, but I'm partially also doing these videos as a discovery thing. I talk about them maybe by visualizing it in a video. I can discover how exactly I can cope with it or handle it, or in the cases that I don't know how to confront these fears, maybe through these videos I discover. I probably should have mentioned that earlier, but sometimes I forget and I'm a more of a do it gradually as you go along type of guy, so just the way it is. Um, 4. 4 would be where it stems from, since 3 was really short. But 4, where it stems from, is, I mean, it's not that difficult to pinpoint. You know, we live in a we live in a society, but we do live in a society that kind of mandates that men don't be vulnerable. I know it's much less of a downtrend in some ways now, but there is definitely a there is definitely a still a massive stigma of men can't like be vulnerable with their feelings. They can't expose themselves to everyone else because they have to be these stoic, stalwart, um, strong men who never fucking never do anything, I guess. It depends on the standards, but especially with when it comes to emotions, the most consistent thing is don't be vulnerable. And if you are going to be vulnerable, only be vulnerable to your closest friends, and that's it, which is really messed up. As someone who's currently experiencing it, it's really messed up. And it's also not healthy. I know from experience that even when just being vulnerable with your closest friends, it really isn't enough. You kind of need more than just one person. Maybe if it's one of your closest friends, then try to reach to someone that maybe you're not nearly as close with, or maybe even your extended family. Not extended family, family. Whoa. Extended family. I mean, if you're close to them, I guess, but that's kind of the whole point of the extended part. You're not close to them, so yeah, strange. It is it is mostly because of that ingrained societal norm that I struggle with vulnerability. It's also definitely partially drilled into me by my own father, which is a not so great thing. Even if I cut ties with him, you know, he fucking raised me, even if partially, and it doesn't really matter the quality, he still did indeed raise me. And well, it kind of gets ingrained in you when you're a kid. Not even, he didn't necessarily have to teach it to me, but rather the way his own demeanor was, the way he carried himself, that's the way it was. That's what I was meant to emulate. Didn't matter what heroes I had to stick to reality, and well, my reality was my real, I guess, role model was rather depressing. So, yeah, kind of ever since I've been a child, I've been having issues with vulnerability, even to the point where I may end up just outright lying about how I feel or deflecting entirely so that the topic essentially becomes moot. Bit of a major issue. And the last one, the last question, question 5, confrontation. Um, Now, I know I wrote down in here how to confront it. It's not gonna be that easy, and I don't know, maybe spitballing here might help expand upon the process. I'll go ahead and repeat this verbatim. The greatest way to confront them would be to just talk and be properly vulnerable with my closest friends and family. And while I technically agree with that, I mean, nothing wrong was necessarily stated there. I don't think it would actually do too much in terms of the fear. I know that exposure therapy is a very common way of overcoming a fear, and I think phobias too. I should probably do more research on that before I fully comment, though. But I know that's a very regular way of doing it. But it really isn't that simple in practice. It's much easier to write that down on a paper and just fucking say it out loud. But there's not really there's not really any way of actually properly getting around to it. Although maybe I am thinking about it too much. Maybe I just need maybe I need to stop trying to plan things and instead make an attempt at purely just doing it. Which, in all of the scenarios that I did do it, it was mostly just me spur of the moment hyping myself up and then doing it. So maybe in that sense I should follow that purely, but it feels, well, it feels a lot harder than it is to read. No doubt. Wow. I suppose I just don't know how to get around to it. I suppose I don't have get around to it. Let me add a bit more context to that. Get around to it as in naturally bring it up. And I suppose I don't need to naturally bring it up. I just need to voice my frustrations. I don't have any issues voicing my passions, so I'm not even gonna touch that. But mostly voicing my mostly voice mostly voicing my frustrations, and not just like anger that I feel in the spur of the moment, but frustrations that I have on a deeper level that either feed into my own insecurities or are outright affecting me in a way that I think overall negatively affects my well-being. Um, and aside from that, I don't really know of any other way to, well, to confront it, to work at it, to sort of chip away at this monolith of a fear until it's crushed to nothing but dust and then blows off in the wind. I have no clue. There might be an easier way, and maybe I should probably start researching these a little more, but I have hmm, that'll take some consideration. I should research these more, but more from a I don't know how to put that into words. I think I got to expand my vocabulary again. But research it from a general standpoint, and then maybe, since I'm sure there are phobias for this, I could look into how the phobias are typically treated, or how or how the wait, I don't know where I was going with that. I could look into how the phobias are typically treated, and maybe that'll help me. That's where I was going with it. Maybe it'll help me address it myself, and who knows? Maybe I'll learn that in more extreme cases, entirely different levels of, I guess, therapy need to be taken. I'm hesitant to call it therapy, but I don't know if there's any other word for it. There might be, but I'm really not sure. Um, I suppose that's really it. Again, very, very early series, literally the first video. I do plan to improve this as I go along. Duh. I don't just want it to sit here and stagnate. And hopefully by the end of this, it either looks completely different or just a better version of this first video. If I do think of any other questions, I will put them into the template here, and hopefully I can think of more fears that aren't like kind of superficial and more deeply ingrained in me, but who knows? It I can't really um I can't really, I guess, I can't really just like come up with them instantaneously. It's not how it works. I just need to make sure that I actually write them down when I think about them so that I don't forget. Because despite having this big ass book with like a crap ton of empty pages, I do not um I do not write in this very much. This is like that's the whole point of this. This is why I have this, just to write ideas. So that's something I need to do better, specifically for the Fears series, because the other one is, again, a status checkup. Nothing much, nothing more than that. But this series, I need to put more effort into. It's not just getting in here, reading my journal a little bit, giving a checkup, maybe even comparing last week's video to the one I'm currently making. Hopefully, not, no more hopefully. Fuck hopefully. I am going to improve this as I go along. I don't know how many videos there are going to be. Right now, I only have 2 ideas. I just finished one, and um, I'd hope I'd at least be able to get 5, maybe 10, somewhere in between that range. I think that would be pretty good. That would also kind of line up with maybe one video a month, but again, I can't just I I can't just fucking materialize things out of my head. I'm For the start of this, I'm trying to dig more into, I guess, fears that more severely affect me in my daily life. And then as time goes on, I go to more irrational fears that maybe don't have nearly as much, I guess, to talk about. Like a fear of heights. I have that. I have kind of a fear of the sea, kind of of a fear of space, but again, those are things that I need to delve more into in myself and maybe much later down the line instead of right here, right now. It probably wouldn't work super early on, especially since I'm trying to establish stuff and I'm more used to talking about just one, the way I feel, and two, um, planning stuff out. While things like the heights one and like thalassophobia, I guess. I don't have it, but I say maybe I have like a variation of it. Stuff like that just kind of need they need a more concrete thing, especially since they're bigger and those are much more widely known phobias, far more widely known phobias, and it feels as though they aren't quite they aren't quite appropriate to do oh so early on, especially since I'm not accustomed to actually talking about those. Feels like they need more finesse, which maybe they don't. Maybe I'm maybe I'm working myself up too much. But as far as improvement goes, I hope by time I do end up by them, I have a more concrete and concise way of doing this. And I suppose this first video isn't necessarily just about confronting fears, but also sort of ground rules and hopes for the series as a whole, which maybe I should have made a separate video purely dedicated to that and kept this as concise as possible, but I already made the damn thing. I'm not gonna re-record this. I already had to do this a second time after getting 6 minutes in last time, so this is what we get. Maybe some other time for updates and the like, I'll go ahead and give myself like checkmark videos or checkpoint videos. Watch that as here's the updated rules and then go according to that. So, yeah, I suppose that's just about everything detailing the series and as well as this first fear. It's a new experience and um hopefully this one actually like helps a lot. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm doing science right now. I'm doing science on myself. This is the whole point of this thing. So, yes. That's the end. That's it. I will see myself next time.